daily news at Sibos. My name is Alara Basul and I'm here with Erik Zingmark, Head of Transaction Banking at Nordea. Today we'll be talking about innovation in the Nordics, what Nordea are doing to keep up with competition, and a little bit about what we've kind of learned here at Sibos. So welcome, Erik.
Thanks a lot.
I just want to start about talking about you and about your role at Nordea. Kind of what are you in charge of, and what have you learned at Sibos?
Sure. Well, I'm heading up a division called Transaction Banking. We are doing payments, cards, import-export, e-commerce, blockchain, open banking, and things like that for all the segments of Nordea.
And how long have you been with the bank?
Soon 5 years.
5 years, wow, okay. So in the last 5 years, you must have seen a lot of innovation going on, not only the banking industry changing, but also banking in the Nordics, they're kind of always at the forefront of innovation.
Yeah.
How does kind of Nordea kind of stay at that forefront?
Yeah, I think a lot has happened the last years, obviously, and I would say that the Nordics is boiling right now with innovation. There are a lot of fintechs and entrepreneurs. And I think what has changed a bit is that 5 years ago we were focusing on supplying the customers with what they expected us to supply them with. Mm-hmm. And today we are more pushing them and challenging them in how they conduct their business. And e-commerce is one example.
And how would you say e-commerce is kind of changing in the Nordics, maybe compared to Europe?
Well, I don't know if there is so much difference in e-commerce between the Nordics and Europe, but I think that definitely the banks are very engaged in e-commerce, and e-commerce is growing very rapidly in the Nordics. It's growing twice as fast as the rest of Europe.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of kind of payments and transactions, kind of the Nordics are always one step ahead when it comes to maybe cashless kind of staying ahead of the trends. Kind of have you noticed that here at Sibos, or have you noticed a lot of discussions?
I think you're right in that sense that the Nordic countries are very much in the forefront, not in all areas, but in general we're quite fast. We have a kind of society that embrace new technology, and we are going cashless. So I definitely think that we have that kind of reputation. Still, of course, we're a small region, so we are not kind of able to scale it globally. So we need partners to do that, to reach other continents, so to speak.
And how have you, kind of as head of transaction banking, kind of what have you seen that's been changing in the industry in the last few years?
Well, as you know, there are a lot of hypes coming, and then they slow down, and then a new hype comes up again. But obviously blockchain has moved from being a hype to being quiet to now being more happening. Yeah. I think data and artificial intelligence is definitely to me the most hot topics, both from a commercial perspective, but also how to fight financial crime. So I think those are obviously extremely interesting for us, and we are very engaged in that. Then I think all the things that Swift are doing is still, is very interesting as well. Swift is important to us banks, and I expect Swift to continue to develop to support our needs as banks and as owners of that. I think banks are now in a phase where we are a little bit more in control than we were a few years ago, because we have realized that both us and the fintechs have realized that we need each other. So I think that we are now in a phase where we benefit from collaborating, and we both realize that we do that, and I think that will bring a lot of good stuff to our customers.
Mm-hmm. And do you think we'll see a lot more collaboration between fintechs and corporates, or maybe banks amongst each other?
Yeah, I think first of all banks are very much collaborating more and more, not in a way that would damage competition, but rather to spend as little as possible to build platforms. Sure. To enable commercialization and customer value. So we see one example in the Nordics is Project 27, where the 6 banks have come together to create the world's first cross-border, cross-currency, real-time platform, which is extremely exciting. It's really something that will change the way we conduct business in the Nordics.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the initiatives for Nordea, like in the next year, let's say? What's kind of on the roadmap?
I think Nordea, like most banks, are now in a phase where we are very much focused on kind of commercializing what we have invested in the last 3 years. So for us that means that we are progressing with our open banking platform, and we are now having about 5,000 developers in our sandbox. So we have a lot of really smart entrepreneurs and fintechs and others. And now it's time to start to get that out of the factory, so to speak. So we see that we create tangible results from that. We are going to continue to focus a lot on e-commerce, how we can help the merchants to grow their business, but also to help B2B companies because they are also moving online now. And thirdly, we are continuing to invest in the mobile payment space, which is extremely important for the consumer side of our business.
And what are you doing to kind of strengthen your competitiveness in the market?
Yes, well, one thing that we do and have been doing for some years now is that we are replacing all our legacy. So we are running one of the largest IT projects among banks relatively to our size, and that is that we are again replacing the legacy and putting in new platforms, one payment platform, one account platform, and one data warehouse. And that will, I think most banks will have to do that sooner or later, and that is perhaps the single most important activity we are running to secure that we are relevant in the future.
And I just want to ask you a bit about Sibos. If you had to pick one buzzword to kind of sum up the conference, what would it be?
There are a lot of interesting things, but I would choose artificial intelligence.
AI.
That will be absolutely critical for banks going forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Erik, for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.